welcome to another episode of the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm Michael Walker, your host for this episode. Before we get started, I want to thank all of our incredible listeners from the United States, Canada, and around the globe. Your continuous support means everything to us. A special thank you also goes out to our sponsor for this episode, Equa Marketing. With nearly 20 years of experience, Equa Marketing is a leader in digital marketing services for aesthetic practices. They are offering our listeners, that's you, a complimentary digital marketing consultation, which includes a tailor-made 12-month digital strategy for your practice. You're going to be able to head over to www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM to book your consultation today. But don't worry about remembering the address. We'll talk about that a little later as well. It'll be available on where you've picked up this podcast. So without further delay, let's dive into our topic for today. And the title is Bridging the Business Gap in Aesthetics, Why It Matters More Than Ever. And we have with us Carla Pierson. Today, I'm excited to welcome her, she is a seasoned aesthetic professional and business strategist who's passionate about helping spa and med spa owners strengthen the business backbone of their practices. I was on her website, the company that she co-founded with her twin sister. That might come up later in the podcast. But Dr. Pierson is an accomplished healthcare leader turned entrepreneur whose passion for quality patient care and operational excellence led her to co-found Smiley Aesthetics. Raised in Nashville, Tennessee, you can tell that by the accent, Carla. Carla is an avid athlete and went on to earn her Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Fueled by her drive for leadership and innovation, she subsequently pursued a Master of Science in Nursing Administration, a Master of Business Administration with a healthcare focus, and ultimately, oh my goodness, a doctor in nursing practice. So do you think we have the right person for this conversation here today? I think so. Carla, it is great to have you here.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Appreciate being honored to be on here with you.
As the aesthetic industry continues to grow, many providers are discovering that clinical excellence alone isn't enough to build a sustainable, profitable business. Carla believes one of the most pressing challenges in the field today is the widespread lack of business knowledge, and it's starting to affect the industry at every level. In this episode, we'll dive into the real impact of this business gap, explore ways new and experienced owners can quickly get a handle on their numbers, and talk about where to focus limited resources for the greatest return. So as I say, Carla, it's great to have you here. And I'm really excited about this topic. I have a business background, but I always, with medical professionals, I kind of look at the as a whole, with exception like you, most of them are accidental entrepreneurs. That they really, if they took a business course, it was by mistake, or they couldn't get into the one they wanted. And I do webinars and podcasts in various aspects, from veterinary to aesthetics to plastic surgery to dental, all kinds of. So I hear, and it's pretty consistent. And so it's like the one with the business background is the one that got away. And it's such an important thing today to have that relevance. But I think that as we talk about that today, I know that's what you're going to highlight. But the first question I want to throw out to you is kind of what has inspired you to shine a light on the business gaps in aesthetics? And really, why do you believe this conversation is so urgent right now?
So Smiley exists because of the gap in business and the medical profession. The story is a funny one. Again, that's a different conversation. But ultimately, when I started doing medical aesthetics with my sister, I not only recognized that compliantly there was no chance we were doing this correctly, no chance we were following the rules, but ultimately she had no idea. My background, again, had been in HCA in a big corporation and doing a lot of business things and money being top of mind. And she was just so lacking just some of the basic things of like, great, we made $1,000. Now what? And I'm like, yeah, oh boy, we got to really, and as money starts coming in, not knowing what to do with it is fascinating. And so that's kind of how we built our platform to help medical professionals own and operate their own businesses and understand some of that stuff. Because inherently, as nurses, I say this all the time, and medical professionals and physicians, we are not taught this in school. There is no business course. There is nothing in nursing school as it relates to business, because the education in medicine is archaic, and you are designed to go into a hospital and work underneath a physician and work for da 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 da, and the doctor is going to own it, and that's going to be how medicine was designed. So why do you need to understand how to do your taxes? It's just all been it's a catastrophe, in my opinion. It's an absolute. One of my passions is lobbying for nursing curriculum to require some form of business education, because nurses are able to go out and do things on their own, and not be, with most due respect, beholden to a physician. You can own a lot of things. You can do a lot of things. So that's really where my passion lies. And it was all highlighted by the medical aesthetics industry, because you see a lot of nurses and medical professionals opening med spas and opening businesses and have no idea what they're doing beyond that. So, yeah.
And I mean, and ideally, there's a couple of people listening to this going that's not true. And that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's exactly what we want. Because you've got something to give away. Now the question is, why are you not sharing that with others like Carla is? So,
which is also part of it's also part of the problem too in this industry, which is the competitiveness, because I think the other problem with nursing and medicine is we don't know how to deal with sales and competition, because that's not what we're made to do. Again, you go into a hospital, you're assigned your patients. There's no competition. It's like, here's your 6 clients, take care of them all day, and then go home. And if anything, it's collaboration, it's teamwork, it's all these things, but there's no competition to get the actual client, which, in the hospital, of course, we call them patients. Then jump into the business world, and all of a sudden we're competing over those patients and trying to figure out, well, I walked into work today, why don't I have my 6 assigned patients? It's like, no, you got to go get those patients. Like, those patients don't just walk in. So it's just this totally different world that it seems like, well, that's common sense. And it's just not. It just isn't. Well, I have the skills. I'm the nurse. You have to come to me for the Botox. So why would I have to get the client? It's the same thing as the hospital. You come to me, and it's just wildly different. So it's, to your point, collaborating and helping each other. It's not. We find ourselves here at the hospital and here in business, and we just haven't figured out how to be like, okay, this is okay, instead of just wham, and being really, really kind of not nice.
Yeah, and that's funny, because I have a leadership coaching company. I work with healthcare professionals, as well as I'm a professional mediator. So I see all the bad communication stuff.
Yeah.
And so if I was to break it down, if I think about a doctor, the education, the training, the work, the time you put in is massive. It's such I thank my doctor every time I go, because they make that commitment. And they gave up so much, and I understand, there's money involved in this, but at the end of the day, being on call, and there's just so many factors, and I have such appreciation for it. But I said, but I don't understand why you want to be Heinz 57. Like, you don't know anything about sales. Therefore, you don't know anything about the supply and demand equations. You don't know much about business, other than what you need to know to get your tax stuff to the accountant.
Right.
You don't know anything about marketing, digital marketing in particular, in the platform today where Google changes its algorithm 6,000 times a year.
Right.
All right. You don't know anything, and this is one of my field expertise. You don't really have any emotional wisdom.
Right.
And what I call that's your EQ, your emotional quotient. That's the science of people blended with the art of relationships. Now, what's interesting is that we have some level of art of relation. Nurses, in particular, the support staff do. They have to. They're the front line. The doctors, not so much.
Right.
I see this in the veterinary field. But I think, so taking all of that and saying, okay, so what is it? If you take 80% of what you do and focus on 20% of what you're great at, which is the trained portion,
right?
Then the question is, who have you brought around in your circle, to complete it, so that you don't have a wheel with a notch out of it?
Yeah. Well, and that
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're defining to circle back to your original comments, is the failure and the catastrophe that is happening in medical aesthetics, is the realization of you can ignore the business part to start out. Everyone's got you're a nurse practitioner and you add on Botox. Well, you have tons of patients who see you already. You have friends and family. Everybody knows you as the great nurse, so they come and you do well for in the beginning, or just the notion that you've been a nurse for a while, or whatever the case is, or a physician. So you add this service on. So surely people will come for that. And the first ones do. It's that notion of friends and family, the hockey stick. You have that little bump, and then it flattens out, and we still kind of ignore the business side of it because it's still okay, like it's fine. And then the problem is you either go up or you go down, and they just don't know what to do, and never so many things that you don't think of because you just don't know what you don't know. So it's a catastrophe because of the maturing industry that is medical aesthetics. The businesses that are successful are struggling because they just don't know how to manage that money, or what do I do with it, or whatever the case is. And then you have the other side of it who've spent $1 million on machines and have done so many things, and the friends and family ran out. And so now they're stuck with all this stuff these debts and these personal liabilities they don't know what to do with, have no idea, to your point, how to market, and they don't even know how, they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know how to garner the knowledge to market. So trying to go read it, go Google an SEO book. You're going to get a textbook that's like that big. You have no clue what any of that stuff means. Like, you don't even have access almost to the resources. AI is helping, but to the resources to help you learn. So the catastrophe is watching all of these businesses then fail, ones that were doing well and ones that were destined to fail. Because they just don't have someone helping them with business. And it's tough. And it all goes back to that root cause, which until we change that, which is educating medical providers better on the front end, requiring some kind of business knowledge and awareness, you know, we're not going to fix it. So
No.
it sounds so negative. I mean, it's great.
No,
It's great.
it isn't though. Let's just talk a bit about the
Okay.
some of the. Let's just continue to break it down. I said, where there's a lack of vision, people perish, and the reality is that a lot of people. I've heard it in this field, in the aesthetics field, more so than in legal and dental, even that matter, veterinarian, or like you guys. But there's a genuine passion for. There's a passion for who you are and why you matter, but it gets pushed under what you do and how you do it. And no one knows how to bring that back up and have that work well together, which brings out the creative space of an organization where the gift is. That's where people love to come to you. That's where referrals come from. That's where you go home at night, feel good about yourself and how you handled others. All of that happens in that space. But generally in these fields, because the science side tends to drive the transactional, and it holds up. And we just lose the other part. So I think, but in this, I have a question here that, we're talking about lack of business education in aesthetics. And when we talk about business education, that's a very broad statement, but let's leave that at this point. But you said the lack of business education that is doing real damage to the industry. Can you expand on what you're seeing and why this matters now more than ever? Let's give some anecdotal evidence here.
Anecdotal evidence. Okay, so for Smiley, we have our brick and mortars, but we have a platform where people can own and operate their businesses, and they own their own LLCs, and we help them with some of those basics. But what you see with them, so a perfect example is I'm not making any money. It's been a year, and my loss on the year was $312. And that's what one of them came to me and said. And it was not much, but it was like, I can't sustain this because I'm giving all this time and energy and effort, and I'm not making any money. And I'm like, well, congratulations, you got through 1 year of business and you lost $312. First off, there's an inherent misunderstanding of how business works right there. And it is perpetual in nursing, especially, that they should immediately make money, that this industry will immediately garner you money that you can bring home. And that you're just starting right off at a negative right there. So just that alone, I'm like, well, trigger number one. But then what I asked for, my trigger number two, is just a basic, hey, just send me over your P&L, and I'll look at it and I'll meet with you. You always get, well, what's a P&L? And I'm like, okay, red flag number two. Basic stuff that if we don't know, I can't stand talking about knowing our numbers, because that statement just bugs me, even though I find myself using it. It's very popular in this industry to say those words. And that really doesn't mean a whole lot, because people say they know their numbers. Well, I made $1,000 and only spent $500. I'm good to go. I'm like, golly, that is a baseline, but boy, we're still missing out on some really basic stuff. So that was trigger number 2. And then when she sends it over, I'm literally like, you have $312 lot. Like, you purchased product and you sold it, and you purchased it for less than you sold it. It's an impossibility that you are losing money. So something on here is not, you're missing something, because the column A and column C, don't add up, because there's something missing there. And as it turns out, whenever she would go, we had a brief little session. I met with her and talked to her about some basic stuff. When she would go do a couple $1,000 sale, she'd have a full face consultation, a full face filler. She'd make $2,000 or $3,000. Well, she'd make a run to the grocery store, make sure she filled up her gas tank, paid a credit card bill or two, and then put some on her credit card where she bought her product from her business. And I was like, you paid yourself? She's like, well, no, I just, did some basic, I had to get groceries for the family. I'm like, it's almost mind boggling to you. And it really was a moment for me of, and it's not a, Michael, I think it's so important to say this. Like, I'm saying that with such awe, and it is not an insult. Goes back to what I originally am going to say this whole podcast, which is an absolute catastrophe. That is the lack of education we're given in a bachelor's degree in nursing, even a master's. Like, there was nothing in my master's in leadership about this. In hospital nursing administration, there was nothing about it that you wouldn't understand. Oh gosh, I'm paying myself. Then let's not get into the fact that that's a distribution. And oh my gosh, it's going to be taxed differently. And let's talk about taxes. Let's not even go there. But what she turned in to her tax accountant, who didn't even ask the questions and didn't even notice, just saw $312, never looked further, because everyone relies on the tax accountant. Well, they told me to spend. I'm like, whoa, the last person we should be starting our business with is the tax accountant. They're the one trying to do some things at the end of the day. You're at the beginning of the day. So there's just so many misleading things out there. And per normal, Google's our worst enemy in some of this, because we'll talk to your tax accountant. I'm like, that's not different. That's different than your accountant and your controller and your tax accountant, they're two different people. So there were just so many things just in that little meeting. And that is so many, if you're listening to this, there's so many providers out there who have their sales and have their expenses. Hopefully they have every single thing they've used in their business to, spend their money on. But at worst, that's all they have. And so you are that person. And so it's not that far-fetched, and it's not an insult. It's just, that's all we know. And that's the limit of the knowledge. And the more successful she gets, the harder things become. And she can't get a loan from a bank. She wants to buy a machine. She does very well, but she has no one's helping her do any of that. So it all perpetuates itself if the foundational aspects aren't there of just knowing some of those basics. And again, how do you learn some of those basics if you don't know what you don't know? So it's just quite the conundrum.
Yeah, and I concur with you. I've been surprised in all the fields I'm in, how surprised people are about some of this. I've been a part of webinars where we're talking about just basic accounting, and there's just a complete lack of understanding. But that's not it's not their fault. It's the system you said, but it is their opportunity.
Agree.
And so if I paint a picture right now for our listeners, so if you think, if you own a car, probably everybody on this probably owns a car, maybe, or motorcycle like I do, but they own a car. And what do you know? When you get in the car, you turn it on, right? A whole bunch of lights flash up on the dashboard, and then they all settle down, and ideally none of them stay on. And off you go. Right? And then when a light comes on, it could be the engine's running hot, or it could be or the fuel gauge is down, or just a tire pressure is low. Those are all indicators of something that's changed in the performance of the car. Do you know how to fix it? No. Probably. Well, maybe you do. I shouldn't generalize like that.
Well, we can.
But I know I can. There's things I can do, and I'm,
right.
Doing my brakes is not one of them. But the interesting thing is that if you think about everything, like if the gas gauge is low, so on your business dashboard, imagine, what does it look like? You say, well, I don't have one. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beauty. This is the beauty of the starting point that Carla's talking about, is that it's about defining what you want on the dashboard and then reverse engineering it to that.
Yeah.
And so if you think about a low fuel gauge is like low cash flow. So that means when we go over and look and, oh, looks like the accounts receivable light's on, and so is the inventory light. We got way too many accounts that haven't been paid, and we got way too much inventory. We're using up all our cash there. Anyways, just this idea of and I think that's what I'm discovering, Carla, is we have, it can't come at this as a pure economic financial model, because the medical experts love to try to turn it into a science.
Yeah.
And that's the point is sometimes you just have to let it move. And I was thinking the big thing I've learned in my business is one of the things that most often hasn't happened with most people is really, have we really defined the words we're using? And in this case, profit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you mean? What does profit mean to you? What does profit mean to me? To me, profit is a very much an economic thing. But if I said to you, but if I look at profit from my core values, then it looks more like prosperity, which is financial, relational, spiritual, physical, and emotional. Oh, well, that's completely different. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so there's this gift. So the challenge of trying to, I don't think there's any one entry point, but there has to, to your point, if you have a catastrophe, do you just watch it just kind of go by your window, or do you try and stop it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, your analogy is perfect. Even the, what does profit mean to you? I mean, even knowing that, if you go back to technical, I mean, gross, net, no, I mean, it's just the missing education. So, and to your point, it is a systemic issue in the educational part of things. Because it's still to this day in nursing school, you go out, and I would still recommend all nurses go into the hospital, because it's the baseline for everything. I do think that is something that should happen. So I kind of perpetuate in that regard. But once you leave that, there's just a world of things you can do. We would agree, and medical aesthetics, is the highlight of, I think, nursing and owning your own back practice. But we're seeing like direct primary care is coming out too for nurse practitioners in full practice states, and even direct primary care for physicians with partners and stuff in other states that don't have that. So it's another example of nurses and medical providers, physicians or otherwise, going into direct businesses and just not having that background to do so. So how are you educating yourself before you just jump off the cliff? We also have a training program. That's how we train on basic Botox and filler. And I do a full business section on that, trying to get people in there. And mostly I just terrify the bejesus out of people, because it's basically slide after slide of the things you're going to need that you're not thinking about right now, because you just signed up. I used to ask them when I taught it in person, I would tell them I'd be like, raise your hand if you found this class in the last 14 days and you signed up and you're like, I'm going to do that. I mean, it was always, I would say 60, 80% of the people would be like, oh yeah, me. And I'm like, well, what's your plan after this? And it's like, well, I was going to, either go work in a med spa was popular. And I'm like, have you attempted to get a job as a new injector in a med spa? Have you even thought about that? And I wasn't trying to be negative. You're already here, but have you thought about that? And almost no chance in HE double hockey sticks. And now that the aesthetics industry is older and more mature, now it's about how do you keep your injector versus how do you find a good injector. 2 years ago, that was the big topic. I mean, those were topics at this, the conferences we were speaking on, is how to find a solid injector or how to train that new one. And now it's like, well, how do you keep them? Because heck, there's a bunch of them now. So you're not going to find a job as a new grad, as it were, in aesthetics. Okay, so now what? So now, well, I'm going to do it on the side. I'm like, okay, great. So what's your first step? Well, I'm going to, so how do you get the Botox? And I'm like, oh boy. Okay, you're already here getting training. So you're every second from this day forward, you're another second away from holding that needle in someone's face, which is terrifying as it is, whether you're a nurse or not. And you don't even know that, medical, and people are better, Michael. I think that nurses are getting more educated in medical aesthetics because of the jibber jabber, and that they do come and they do know a lot more. So I'll say that compared to 2 or 3 years ago when we first started training people, they come knowing a lot more. So I don't want to insult anybody. Like, no, I did a lot of that research. But I'm like, well, how did you do it? Well, I Googled, and it said that, that I had to have a medical director, but he had to own it. But I needed to do an LLC, but it needed to be a PLLC is what it said, but he had to own my med spa. And I'm like, really? Is that that's what Google told you? And that's that. So we're seeing that when I talk about the industry advancing, what you're seeing now and what I like you consult a lot on is the disaster that is the partnerships and relationships and operating agreements or lack thereof and LLCs. And oh, I have a PLLC and he owns it too with his PLLC. And I'm like, I mean, just the basic stuff that, and it's not that basic. That's starting to get more complicated. But as the industry gets it more advanced, we're starting to get into the complicated, and all these things are falling apart, and it's business relationships. And we don't want to be in business together anymore because we can't agree. Okay, great. What does your operating agreement say? Well, we're 50-50. So now what are we going to do? So it's all of those things that are perpetuating itself. And I think the industry is doing well, of course, and it's a great thing. And I'm proud to see all these nurses succeeding. There's plenty that are succeeding, but the issues are going to, I think they're just kind of, it's like a balloon.
Yeah, well, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we have information at our fingertips at nano speed, and now we have AI that just summarizes what it thinks the human is thinking,
Right.
and without any control or license on that. So yeah, so it really comes back, to me, it's about this idea: what did you get in this for? What's your vision for yourself? And what are your core values that are holding that? And what's your vision for the organization? What do you want your story to be in 5-10 years from now?
Right.
And really coming back, it's kind of coming back to the heart of what it was.
Right.
Because I think you're going to have more salespeople coming in, selling you this, adding this, more access. And at the end of the day, your greatest asset is your existing customer, where you can continue to build a relationship with them and increase sales with them. But even more so, they can bring pre-qualified new customers in at a fraction of the cost of what it would take you to do it externally.
Right.
But that requires a marketing strategy. That requires a digital platform to do that. That requires the business pieces. And I don't know if this makes, I've always said that I know I could run a hospital. Not because you don't want me doing any neurosurgery on
Right. Sure.
But I know people and how to lead them, and I understand business enough to be able to apply the fundamentals, and I know to bring the right experts around me that will support the core activities. Yep. And I think it's just turning that around. Like, you guys know how to do the stuff, but the other pieces you don't. So it's just like, and yeah, I have my saying, we say we help leaders lead themselves well so they can lead others well. So they get to go home at night and feel good about how they handled themselves and others. Yeah. And that's kind of our whole philosophy. And I think, how many times do you go home at night feeling just overwhelmed? Or did I get this done? Or did I make a mistake? Or how much are we losing? And all those things. But when you don't have anybody helping, like somebody like Carla that we're talking to here today, that helps craft an agenda-free space for you to explore really where you're at, what's happening, in a way that it's not about Carla taking over the company and running. It's about her just giving you different ways to look at something to make a more informed decision.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense. And you hit another great point. The obsession with some of the ideals that is business, I think, also really hurts those that don't have the education in it. You see things on TV, and that it just is what it is. On Instagram, social media, I think social media is ruining the world in so many ways. We need it for a variety of things, for business. Sure, you keep whatever you want to say about it, but I just think that the impact of it, you see, whether you start following aesthetic nurses, and it's, CEO, founder, main injector. Well, that's now your perfect story. So that's what you want to be. You want to own, operate, be the injector, be the CEO. It's my baby. I built this beautiful practice. And it's my core beliefs in business is I rarely, if ever, have or will own 100% of anything, because I don't know what I don't know about certain areas of things. And not that people need to give up equity, and let's not all get all twisted on some of those things in partnerships, but doing it with somebody else has tried and true for me, shown that I can allow, to your point, you said it perfectly, somebody else can do the neurosurgery. I'm happy to run the hospital and be the leader. And then I'm also going to bring in the nurse to make sure that the post-surgery is taken care of. Like, I can't do all of those things. But the world has told you in a medical aesthetics that, oh, it is such a sexy idea to be the CEO, the injector, the leader, all the things of this practice. And then you'll roll up these people underneath you as you got it to even get to a point of having an employee. Let's just not talk about employment law and how difficult and all that type of stuff. it's this idea of this is your baby, this is your thing. And, it's Beauty by Carla. And I'm obsessed with that. And I think that's also what we're seeing is a lot of challenges, and it's causing a lot of chaos in medical aesthetics is the obsession with what was my baby. And it's like, well, we gave up a part of Smiley to another profession from the very beginning because I couldn't afford to pay the person, and I was very strategic about that. I don't recommend that without advice, but that because I knew I couldn't do it without the right people in place. And so from day one, I was like, I don't have to own this whole thing because we'll go a lot farther. Where I go, you go, we go together. And that is a powerful thing in business. And I think all too often we idealize you can do it, small business, break your neck, work 24 hours a day, burn it at both ends for 3 years, and you're going to make it. Yeah, that sucks. And you know what nurses are, Michael? A lot. And so are physicians and everybody else. But, just in honing in on nurses, a lot of females, a lot of wives, a lot of moms, a lot of young kids, a lot. And that's just not that idea of business in that old school regard of working it 24/7. It's your life, day in, day out, bleed it. That doesn't mix with what a typical nurse is, which is a wife and a mother and all these other things. Like those things don't work. That this is a different person that we're talking about from 50 years ago that isn't really a thing anymore. So unpacking some of those things to allow for the truth, which is doing things together with other people, really takes everybody farther. If you choose the right partner, then there's a lot to that. For you and I think talking about this at a high level is very difficult because that leads immediately into partnerships and how you structure those and operating agreements. And it's like, whoa, everybody chill. Don't go just take on a partner. Like everything requires thought. But it's hard for me not to dive into that. But the point is this obsession with a singular person owning and operating something, and that's idolized in Hollywood and everything else. Oof, it's frustrating for me. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I guess what I can hear that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking we were talking. I never thought this before. You think of a relay race, right? For a man or woman relay race, right?
Yep.
And they do their I don't know how many. That's around the track. Was it 200 yards? I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're around there. They're going full tilt, right? Like so, they maximum, and then they hand the baton off to the next person. They do it, and somebody wins the race. Well, it's not probably humanly possible for one person to run that fast,
right,
for 4 laps,
right,
and win that. That's the advantage is you need a team. It's the idea of if you think about a magnet, that two magnets that are the polarization is matched, and you try and push them together, they try and come apart, right? And it kind of feels like so much when people are just trying to be this Heinz 57, this jack of all trades, and they're pushing together. And for a season, look, and I can do it. It's working. But eventually you're going to get tired and it's going to come apart. And so we're just being preemptive, but I think let's flip the page here, because let's just jump into, we probably got owners that are thinking, okay, well, so what numbers should I be looking at? What you're talking about this guy, we're talking about numbers. Let's talk about somebody that's already in operating right now. Yeah. And then we'll talk about somebody who's just looking at starting, but somebody's already operating, and they're struggling with the numbers. What are a couple of fast, efficient ways they can get a handle on their financials and make informed decisions?
Yeah, at a baseline, Michael, we all use a lot of these. A lot of us are using the EMRs, which is number one, and people skip over that a lot. Using an EMR, an electronic medical record of some kind, there's a bunch of them out there, is step one. That's going to be the best way to do that, which leads right into business. And then just a simple, I give it out to all of our new injectors. It's the simplest spreadsheet where you log all of your income and all of your expenses at a minimum. Every single time you get a dollar and every single time you spend one of those dollars. At an absolute minimum, if you're an owner and you're not doing that, and you're not doing it, so you don't have to physically do the logs if you're lucky enough to have someone help you in the beginning. But if you're not looking at that on a regular basis, and that bottom number just goes up and down based on what you make or what you spend, at a minimum, know what that number is. And then I really cash flows and stuff like that, balance sheet, throw people off. All that stuff is pretty complicated. And I get that. But a cash flow, you mentioned it earlier, that is not all that complicated. That is looking back at that number, grabbing that number every Friday and putting it on another tab and just going and saying, okay, when I look back here, so you can at least see this is where I got low. This is where I didn't get low. So historically, you can see like, oh, it's because all my bills hit on the first. I got rent. I got that machine payment. I tend to buy a lot of product for some reason. People come in early in the month. I don't know. Having some idea of the past helps you with your cash flow for the future to say, okay, I've got $5,000 in the bank today. It's the third of the month. All of my bills already came out. Great. So next week, it looks like I have $400 coming out in ads. I probably am going to be low on Botox based on the appointments I have. So I'll need to buy that. Okay. So 5,000 becomes one. Okay. But then again, everyone gets where this is going. Okay. But I have 8 appointments on the books. So on average, I'm doing like 40 units an appointment. That's $400, whatever. That's how you get a cash flow going. And so you can look and say, my cash never seems to be below $10,000 and it's actually kind of growing. Gosh, could I afford to add a modality? Like, could I afford to, is this one room enough? Like it seems like maybe I need to like, those things start happening. But if you don't have just those basic things, then just looking at a bank account is not enough. And it's where people get in trouble because you start to forget, oh, it looks great on the 25th of the month. My gosh, I have more money than I've ever had. But you're forgetting that $8,000 worth of stuff is going to come out. And have you started paying yourself? A lot of people don't ever build in their own salary ever. They come to me and they're like, I'm doing great. I mean, it's growing every month. I'm like, okay, what are you paying yourself? Well, I'm not, because every single penny is supposed to go back into the business. And I'm like, that is super cute in this beginning, but no one can sustain that. So, getting some of those basic numbers on the books, Michael, I think is step one, because then you can take that information and you can go get help. Or honestly, you can ask AI if you need to. You can go find help somewhere if you have that basic information, especially nowadays. So that would be my biggest recommendation, is to pull that information out, be diligent. Every penny, that cup of coffee, that counts. That gas tank, that everything counts.
Yeah, it's not that cup of coffee. It's not about being held accountable because you're having a cup of coffee. It's about being responsible for knowing what your financial position is.
Yes.
And that's a different thing. It's psychological. I don't want, my dad always wanted to know what I was spending, and so it's not, this isn't about that. It's about, and the cash flow, is so different than profit. I mean, if you spend $10,000 and pay for those supplies, they in that 1 month, to what Carla's saying, I mean, there's going to be you're going to have inflows and outflows that are dramatic based on cycle of paying, but that doesn't reflect the actual net profit. Right. Or gross margin, depending, because it's only going to take the portion of that expense that was related to whatever materials you sold in that period and calculate that for them. So again, having that baseline of knowing kind of where the cash flow is. I love the way you put that. I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. That if you have a consistent cash flow, because as soon as you said, I smiled because I said I remember that day.
Yeah.
I remember one day that I just was looking at the back. I said, man, there's just a lot of money in there. And I said, geez, and I had to be honest, I wasn't tracking it that way. I knew I did know where things were at, but I thought, that's interesting. I wonder where's our cash running? So we just ran some past numbers. I said, we got like 30 grand in the bank we shouldn't have. So we put it in, pulled it out, put it in a turn, or we put it into a new equipment, or we put it into whatever. But we make that decision based on the plan, the vision, and where we're trying to get, not just because a salesman came in and said, this is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of that people are getting sold stuff all the time. Let's just do, let's talk about somebody launching a practice. So now they're going, well, I don't want to do anything that Carla's saying, all those mistakes. So how do I not do those? So I think if we look at this, launching a practice, obviously budget is everything. I mean, unless you are one of Warren Buffett's kids, then maybe that's not an issue. But probably even more so with him. You talk about owning a part of a company. He is the example of what it looks like to own a part of a company and leverage it to what he achieved. That's how he started. So, but this idea though of what budgets everything, what's the smartest place to invest in early on to get the most return and kind of set this thing up, Carla?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that one of the things, again, going back before I answer this, and I'll lead right into it, is the understanding that you have to spend money to open a business, whether it's even aesthetics. This training, the product is very expensive in our space, so the cost of goods are very high. And I think that that is a missing link for so many people, that they're like, "Well, I've already spent $5,000 to get started," and I'm like, "Wow." 5,000 entire dollars, like, and that's a lot for people. So I understand that. But if $5,000 is making or breaking you, and this is specific to medical aesthetics, and you're flipping out over that, then you're starting a business to band-aid something that's going on somewhere else, as opposed to, which can be a thing, but that's a really rocky place to start. And so anybody who comes to me who's like, "I've just got to make extra money somewhere," please take a moment, pause, and make sure that starting any business, but particularly this one, which is an expensive business, is the right one. Because if you can't, it can't give you the clients. You can do all the things, but if you can't get the people, then it's very, and that's almost any business for sure. But you can spend a lot less starting a consulting business, because what overhead is there? It's your time, so you can spend a lot less money than that. And I think medical aesthetics, I just want everybody to hear that. If you're like, "I'm going to start a business and that one's real profitable," yes, but you got to spend money to make money in this business, and it is not a band-aid. And I think nursing, especially nurses, miss that a lot. So I just feel remiss if I didn't say that. But as far as where are you spending your money up front, I am a bootstrapper in every single facet of the word. I think that you make sure that you don't do it all. And so bootstrapping is the opposite of what we've been talking about as it relates to, that's kind of someone who does it all themselves. But it doesn't have to mean that. When you look at the Google definition, that's not necessarily what I mean. Meta, by example. Facebook has done so much for social media, for advertising, for marketing. No, you don't know necessarily what you're doing, but that doesn't mean you can't get started for free. You can get on there, you can get out in social media. We know that that's king and queen of the marketing world in a lot of ways. There's a lot of help you can get by that. Again, I have to say, put a plug in for being so careful. There are predators abound in our industry all across the board. That's attorneys that are the compliance. The sexiest term right now in the industry is compliance, and so people are taking advantage of that and really can make people spend a lot of money. Marketing companies, you got to make sure you vet them. There's plenty of great ones, and plenty of really solid ones who know exactly what they're doing. And I'm not a marketer, so knowing when and where to bring on a partner is critical. It's not something, it's individualized, Michael, and it's not something there's any individual roadmap. Because to your point, do you have a little bit of money set aside? Hopefully you do. Like, did you say, "Okay, I'm going to save up 10 grand before I go start this business"? Are you trying to band-aid something and you're going to pull every penny you make and put it on a band-aid on your personal life? It's a different business. Or are you truly like, "You know what? I'm going to work, burn it from both ends. I'm going to be a nurse for 3 days a week, and then I'm going to do this on my days off, and I'm going to not take any money from this," which is obviously an ideal bootstrapping mentality. But to answer your question, some of the compliant things, LLCs, right? Like in the state of Tennessee, it's $300 to get an LLC open. And so, you're gonna have to file taxes, like just making sure that you have some of those finances where you set aside, or you immediately set those aside, depending on where you are. So many people start in the holidays because they want to make extra money. And then boom, January 1st hits and you got to file taxes and you got to do your annual report and you're out $800 right there. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but for a brand new business, that can be a lot of money. So making sure that you get some of those baseline things set aside from a financial perspective, using your free resources where you can before you spend any money on anything, quite frankly, and give yourself time to see if there's any traction whatsoever in what you're doing before you just dump a bunch of money into something. I think that that's very important. So I'm more telling you where to not spend your money than where to spend it. But on compliant things and getting yourself right, your EMR, spending the money on that, getting that set up, it's going to be several $100s to set it up, and it's going to have a monthly charge. And then you understand, what are my monthly, even annual charges is not a bad thing. Okay, this charge today, GoDaddy.com for a year was $200, and I can make a very basic thing. Is it not what we want long term? But it's fine for now. So don't let people tell you need to spend 100, whatever the AM spa had the average cost to start a spa last year, or 2023 or something, was like $157,000. I'm like, boy, me and Mary got Smiley started, I think, with like, $3,000 and let's go get our first client. not necessarily what I recommend, but it doesn't have to be those things. There's a middle ground there. So I do think it's a hard question to answer, to say, where should I spend my money? I'm like, well, let's try not to spend the money first, and let's exhaust the free stuff that we can do and educate ourselves and make sure there's something here. And then we can talk about where we want to spend our money after we kind of get going. And that kind of answers your question, but it really is how I feel.
I think that's the way to look at it, though. I think you're right. Like, it's what we're not to spend. I mean, that's the thing. There's just so many pitfalls. You know,
Yes.
go after those things that are free. In fact, that's one of the things I mentioned at the outset with Echo Marketing, like the high, like, so they're basically, and, you know, yes, this is part of the Echo Marketing sponsors this. Yes, but I can tell you, I've seen the results of this, where they're going to they're going to go in, and they're going to put about 6 hours in looking at your website, looking at all your digital platforms, all your entry points. You know, like 45% of your business contacts come after hours and through that, and then they're going to come back with a report that tells you, here's what you could do, here's options how you do it. And then, to your point, now you were about to go and do this extravagant $10,000 website. You don't need it, but you could spend $100 on this or two. And so if you're listening to this, I really encourage you to go ahead and take that strategy call, because there's no hooks or tricks in that, but it's just so important, because that's what we're talking about. Because if you want to start out with $3,000 in a shoestring, then you're going to have to find a lot of creative ways to apply that every dollar.
Yeah.
If you have $300,000, sometimes that's worse, because you actually get lazy in doing your homework.
Right.
You know, you just buy. So and to your point, Carl, I love how you put that, kind of finding that middle ground. Hey, just looking at time, but I want to let's put one last word out for some folks from you.
Yeah.
An encouraging word for somebody who's in it, and they know there's areas of improvement that they need to look at in terms of business or marketing, in terms of sales, or, you know, they know they know their stuff, but they don't know that stuff. And it's something encouraging for somebody who's just, okay, I want to go into this. I really have a passion for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cliche, but you can do it. You really can. I do think that anybody can do it. Anybody, you know, with the right qualifications, the right situations, you know, no, not everybody can do it in that regard, but anyone can start their own business. And my biggest thing that I tell people is fight immediate gratification. And so that requires you to not say, okay, I'm going to go into aesthetics, and then you sign up for a class this Friday. That's fight it. Fight the immediate gratification that we feel in our society as hard as you can. And that's throughout everything. The guy comes in the door, he's got the most beautiful machine, 3 clients, you pay it off, you're going to be great. Like, fight the immediate gratification and shop. And we don't like to shop as medical providers, Michael. We like to go into our supply room in the hospital, and there's all these things, and we just scan, and we just grab it all, and that's all the only options we have, and we can take care of our patient, and we can, you know, open your chest and save your life. That's not what business is. And so take the time to fight immediate gratification and shop around and understand what you can and cannot get, which, to your point, I love that you said that. Take the free calls. Guys, people have free consulting calls all over the place. Like, you can garner a ton of stuff from them. And then just because you can't do it today, doesn't mean that you put that on a spreadsheet of like, man, this was wonderful. They were great. Things you can do tomorrow. So there's just so much out there now that you can do it. And you can get started all by yourself, or go find a good person, a good partner, you know, protect yourself. But doing it with somebody else, people often ask how we did what we did with Smiley in the last 3 years. It's because there was more than one of us. 100%. It's because we said, I can't do this alone. And if I want to get to where I'm going, or I just want to be successful, period, or I just want to have a day, Michael, well, you know what? I'm at 10%. Great. You're at 80. You got it today. Like, I need to chill. When you're by yourself, you don't get to do that. It's like parenting. Me and my husband, I'm like, I got 5% in my tank. He's like, I'm at 50. I got it. And I'm like, great. I've got nothing left. It's the beauty of a partnership and doing it right. So there's just, it's very doable, and just seek help and guidance, and don't be cocky. You don't think you know it all, because you don't. None of us do.
No, that's right. A great summary. It's hard to imagine you at 10%, but I'll believe it could happen.
It's not that often, but sometimes.
So probably if I checked with your husband, he'd say, well, sometimes she doesn't know she's at 10%.
Yeah, that could be true. That could be true.
So thank you so much, Carla, for joining us today and sharing your expertise on bridging the business gap in aesthetics. Just so you know that SmileyAesthetics.com is where you can find Carla and her twin sister. Make sure you check out their website. I know that you've just been able to spend almost an hour with Carla. You have a relationship with her. You have some inside knowledge. I encourage you to take that next step. And again, it's not about it's bringing in expertise where you need it and learning a little more and applying it. Your insights today on the importance of business education, understanding the numbers, making smart financial decisions were not just incredible, but just, as we both have said, incredibly timely and very important. And I just really appreciate you sharing that with our listeners. I want to take a moment to thank our amazing listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we couldn't do what we do without your support. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your colleagues and friends on social media and help us spread valuable knowledge throughout the aesthetics community. And don't forget to leave us. We love reviews. You should too. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things with Echo Marketing. They show you how to create what they call them love reviews. And that's a teaser, but it's amazing what can happen.
Yeah.
We love reviews, so please, because if you leave feedback, it helps other professionals, other aesthetic practice owners find us and get what you're getting today. So please do that. So again, as I say, I'm just going to again thank our sponsor, Echo Marketing, for this episode. As I say, they've been around like 20 years in digital marketing for aesthetic practice, so they know their stuff. And I really encourage you to jump on that complimentary digital marketing consultation. As I say, you're going to have a 12-month strategy you can work with to start working this thing through. Guess what? All of a sudden, you're not on your own. And where you'll be able to get that is at the businessofesthetics.org/MSM/. And it should also be available where you picked up this podcast. You'll be able to click and link it there too. So, having said all that, until next time, keep nurturing client relationships, driving your attention, and building long-term success for your practice. And on behalf of Carla, wishing all of you an amazing week ahead.
Thank you, Michael.